I'm so happy you can join us for this very special event on ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. This year's River Symposium has attracted river managers, scientists, Indigenous and community organisations from around the world to hear firsthand how leaders are working to create resilient rivers. The pattern of extreme weather, including prolonged drought, is straining already beleaguered farmers and residents, especially in regions such as India. So how are farming and rural communities best managing the risks of climate change? And what's being done to build sustainable and resilient farming practices? Tonight we're joined by the Director of the Watershed Organisation Trust Centre for Resilient Studies in India, Marcela D'Souza. Hello.
Hello.
And CEO of the Fitzroy Basin Association, Elise Reithmuller. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Elise, if I can start with you tonight. What's the role of the Fitzroy Basin Association?
So Fitzroy Basin is one of those community organisations. We work in central Queensland with all of our community and landholders to help manage all of that vast landscape and our waterways. We bring funding and opportunities and collaborate to make the region great.
Now, for more than 10 years, you've worked alongside graziers, farmers in central Queensland. You're a grazier yourself. When it comes to our waterways, what challenges are farmers facing at the moment?
Wow, what a question. So
all of them?
All of them.
All the challenges.
And above.
Yeah.
So as you said, I'm a grazier. I'm in the Mary catchment, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we have our waterways and our rivers are our lifeblood. They're both a blessing and sometimes, unfortunately, a curse. They bring us droughts. They bring us water that we need to manage our stock and to grow our crops. But then they're also that really challenging thing to work with in a landscape. They bring us pests and weeds. How do we manage? How do we understand our rivers? Which is why we're here at the River Symposium. And how do we work with those rivers and all the people that rely on them?
And is that part of the challenge as well, is competing needs? What one person might need for their business is not what another might need for theirs.
Absolutely. So the Fitzroy Basin is a huge region. It's a very productive economic region. So we're 2.5 times the size of Tasmania. And in that region we have coal mines, coal seam gas, cotton growers, broadacre croppers. We're home to 3.2 million cows or cattle.
Yep.
So that's a vast part of the...
I thought you were going to say people there for a second. I was thinking, surely not.
No, only about 235,000 people. And that region's vast. It's a real tapestry of production, and along with that, lots of different uses and competition for how we best use our resources and how we make it all work.
So when you have times of flood and times of drought, how does that have to make you have to alter plans, or is it about having a plan that addresses those two very different situations? I think
our landholders are eternal optimists. They are the best risk managers that we have, and they work with the system. They use that system. And yes, we're talking at the River Symposium about Cyclone Debbie, one of the most catastrophic events to hit Australia in recent time.
Yeah.
And in that we saw some of our graziers having to hand feed their cattle from a boat because they had no dry land on their entire property. So they did that for 15 days straight. And now at other times we're seeing dust storms and we're seeing either a water drought or a feed drought. They're really tough times. And we need to be there and support our farmers and say, we've got your back. And how do we work together? Because we're sitting here we are in Brisbane. We all want a fantastic landscape and we want to leave it for our future generations in better condition.
Yep.
How do we do that together?
Well, can I bring into the conversation then at this point Marcela D'Souza, Director of the Watershed Organisation Trust Centre for Resilient Studies in India. Are the concerns, the challenges we've been talking about for the Fitzroy Basin area, are they common to areas in India as well?
Yes, a lot of the problems you face are similar to what we face. I don't know how your upper catchments are, but for us in India, having 69% of the country that is semi-arid, arid, and subhumid. And that's where our rivers and rivulets actually begin. That's a huge challenge for us. So the main type of work that we do over here is to actually see how we could capture rain, the little rain that falls there, how do we capture it so that it stays on within the landscape? You know,
Could you tell us a little bit about the Watershed Organisation Trust Centre? What does it do?
the Watershed Organization Trust was actually started to see how it can help rural communities to regenerate the degraded lands so that the farmers out there, and that is about 40% of our food security met from these farmers, to see how these farmers can capture the water and also prevent soil erosion, which is so common in degraded lands, so that they can then increase their agriculture productivity and survive. So what we do actually is a whole landscape treatment of digging trenches and gullies along to stop the soil erosion, as also to stop water from flowing away. What we would say is, the little rain that falls, we see that it stops in the various continuous contour trenches. The rain that stops is then forced underground, and then it helps to surface, it helps to, through basal flows, to flow through the streams and rivers. So that is the type of work that we do. But in the whole process, it is the rural communities who are trained and capacitated to understand it, to implement it, to manage it, and to take it forward.
Yeah. And is this, how then, like, hearing each other speak, listening to other speakers over the River Symposium, what do you hope to get from each other, to learn from each other's experiences?
Yeah, so along the way, the best thing we can do is support each other. So sometimes it's as much, today we were talking about sharing our failings, the things that didn't work, not just sharing those successes. So celebrate the successes, share knowledge about why something did or didn't work and what kinds of things you can do. Sometimes when you're presented with a really wicked problem, the best thing is sharing with someone else, because then you can work out how to go forward.
And for you, Marcella?
From what I am looking forward to learn is actually how you manage the whole river basin, because I think the geology and the geography across the earth is more or less the same. It's how people manage it, and it's the culture of people that is so different.
Yes.
So I think learning from the research that is done, the findings, the impact assessments, and exchanging this across would be very useful.
If prolonged droughts are to become the new normal, how do farmers build a resilient approach then to agriculture if you don't know when the next, I suppose no one's ever known when the next rain was going to come, but there's a possibility it could be longer than ever before?
This really is the big challenge, because since the farmers mainly live in hope, and they always hope that the next year the rainfall will be good, the problem that they face is, how do they use the water that they have today judiciously? So what we have started doing is working around the water management, helping the farmers to see what is the water they have available today from the precipitation, as also groundwater, and then to plan agriculture accordingly. At the same time, enhancing efficiency in water use for agriculture, but always keeping some water for the following year, because we don't know what it would be. As I would like to share a little experience, a woman once in one of our villages said, "You know, we always know that drought will come now and again, but we don't ever think of preparing in anticipation for it." And I thought she gave us a very good idea that we need to work in anticipation, and always knowing we may get a drought, grateful if we don't, but using the water judiciously and not wasting even agriculture. Because losses in agriculture also mean losses of water.
Yeah. And for you as well, Elise?
So I think one of the things that I've been turning my mind to is, how do we pay our farmers to manage their land for the types, for what we want it to be. So rather than just a farmer farming their country to produce beef or to produce grain, we should be saying that we're farming them to manage that area of bushland or that section of the river, those things that we value living in the city and that we want there for the future.
Has that been brought up before? Pardon my ignorance on this, because it sounds like a reasonable idea. You know,
look, it has.
Ideas
there's many initiatives out there. Some of the challenges that we all face is the legislative and the political and the economic environment that we live in. We've got to actually look for different solutions, and we can't keep thinking within the construct of today.
It's been great speaking to you both and having you as guests on The Night the Rivers Sing. Thank you so much for being here. My special guests this evening, Director of the Watershed Organisation Trust Centre for Resilient Studies in India, Marcella D'Souza, and CEO of the Fitzroy Basin Association, Elise Reithmuller.